Hello students, it's good to have you here. Today, our topic of discussion is sustaining tourism's benefits. In our previous classes, we've discussed so many things about benefits ranging from the services to the impact. And we've also discussed about the benefit as well as the disadvantages, so to say, as the negative impact of tourism on maybe the environmental, the social, cultural factors. So we'll be moving ahead to sustaining tourism's benefits. Since we already know the benefits that arise from tourism, then how do we sustain such? So that's what we're going to be looking at today. The learning objectives as listed. We're going to start by explaining how the success of sustainable tourism is measured with the triple bottom line. Then we'll move further to explain how ecotourism differs from mass tourism. Then we'll also explain how tourism services providers can fulfill the principles of ecotourism. In addition to those, we'll try to describe the benefits that may be achieved through the use of ecotourism practices, and we'll list why or explain why tourism services suppliers are embracing sustainability practices. And lastly, for today, we'll try to describe how it is so difficult for tourism service suppliers to achieve sustainable operations. So it's my belief that at the end of the day, will be able to achieve all these learning objectives. At the end of the day, all these objectives would have been achieved. So starting with sustainability, we've been hearing, or we must have been hearing about sustainability all the while. Sustainability is about providing what is needed for something. You want to sustain something. That means that thing is basically in existence, all right? It's actually in existence, but you want to sustain it. It's essentially to provide what is needed for something or for someone to exist and continue in future, all right? It's existing, you want it to exist, and you want it to continue existing. So for sustainability, it's all about providing what is needed for something or for someone to exist and continue to exist in future. Sustainable tourism was, this word was coined from, of course, sustainability, and it has taken the lead from work done in sustainable development. You must have been hearing about sustainable development too. It's a kind of organizational principle for meeting some human developmental goals while also sustaining the ability of the natural system or the economy so as to provide maybe natural resources as well as ecosystem services. So you want to make your own profit while you are also preserving the natural resources. You are not causing harm to other humans or animals. All right. So that's the basic idea of sustainable development. The number of travelers continue to grow as a result of tourism for so many reasons. But then responsible tourism business owners, they do not only emphasize the need for the financial bottom line that they need for to make profit, but they also need to maximize the impact on the areas social and cultural environmental resources. So while you are considering your own profit also, you should take into cognizance of the impact on other people. All right, don't make it a kind of selfish interest sort of a thing. So the number of travelers continue to grow as a result of tourism, and what could be the impact? All right, when there are quicker, cheaper, and safer transportation, this is one of the ways of sustaining tourism. More people with leisure time and money is also one of the factors why there are many people now going into tourism, or for the factors responsible for the growth of tourism. It may be quicker, it may be cheaper for some people, and then the means of transportation may also be safer, like I mentioned earlier. Then the fact that there is global communication, right? The world is a global village, so to say. The means of communications are there, the internet is there, and all sorts. So all these have been contributing factors to why the number of travelers continue to grow. But for instance, globally, you can search information about a specific destination. You can know more even without being there. You can know, a lot about such a destination, such that, okay, that might even help or that might even influence your decision to eventually visit such tourist attraction areas. So all these are factors that actually contribute to the growth of the number of travelers or to the growth of tourism generally. Having stressed the fact that the number of tourists continue to grow, or tourism generally continues to grow globally, we should also know, or we should also keep in mind that too much of everything is also not good. So when there is too much of people in an area, or when there is, when there are too many people or too many tourists in an area, it also has implication. All right. So, and this is called mass tourism costs. It can, manifest in a number of ways. We have some of them on the slide here. Can manifest in so many ways. First is architectural pollution. It might lead to architectural pollution. All right. Herding of tourists like cattle is also one of the factors of having, too much tourism, or too much, people, too much tourists in an area. People start, flocking like, cattle. I actually don't want to use this, but pardon me. So you have herding of tourists like cattle, moving from one place to another. Disruption of traditional cultural events and occupations. Of course, there are people that are indigenous, or there are locals in that particular area, those particular tourist attractions. But when there is too much influx of people to that area, then there is tendency that their own, occupation is being influenced or being disrupted. There are times that their daily activities in terms of occupation might be disrupted by the presence of tourists. Then there is also diminished natural beauty and environment. The responsibility that we talked about the impact of tourism on flora and fauna in the last class. So this is just another aspect of it to buttress it, right? The natural beauty of the environment will also be impacted or affected. Then there's low priority paid to local needs, with funds used instead to increase tourism amenities to keep community competitive, so as to be able to keep tourism competitive. Then the money that is sent would, the management keep on spending that money, rather than paying priority. Giving priority to the needs of the local people, the needs of the immediate needs of the local residents in that particular area. Rather, they prefer to, focus. The governments, they will prefer to focus on the development of the amenities for tourism purpose, rather than factoring or taking into consideration the need of the local residents, so as to provide their own needs for them. So this is a picture or figure showing the stages of tourism development. Of course, when we see something is developing, then that means it has stages. All right, it has stages. It has to start from somewhere. It's just like maybe from human being, from perhaps conception, when you're conceived, then the stages of the pregnancy to maybe birth, or maybe from birth as well to, even as a child you have different stages of development, or as an infant you have stages of development, right, from crawling to standing to walking, and so on and so forth. So the stages of development of tourism is also in about five fold, or five stages. The first stage is the exploration stage. All right, it's the exploration stage. At this stage, there's a small number of visitors that would discover that particular place, that destination area. Only a few people will identify the place, that, oh, we discovered this place, I went to so country, and then eventually, as we were going, or as we decided to visit a nearby village, we discovered this, we discovered that, in that particular. So that is the first stage of tourism development. Before many people start going there as tourists, a few number of people would have visited the place, and they will be the one to discover the place. The next stage is the involvement stage, and this is where you have the number of visitors increasing. All right, some people would have been there, then they tell some other people, or they inform some other people. There are maybe communication, advertisement, marketing about the place, and this continues to increase the number of tourists to that particular area. So more host members may get involved in serving this tourist need. As much as people are trooping in there, the local residents will also have this kind of sense of providing need for those tourists or visitors. So you may want to start opening a cafe, restaurant, and so on, so as just to serve the needs of the tourists. So that's the second stage. We talk about the exploration as well as the involvement stage. The third stage is the developmental stage. All right, that's the development stage. This is where the tourist arrival continues to increase rapidly, and outside developers now build large facilities. They have to build large facilities so as to serve the seemingly endless demand. People keep demanding, people keep coming. So now there is need for the assistance of outside developers to start building maybe large facilities, for example, accommodation facilities, recreational facilities in such area, so as such areas, shopping malls, and so on, so as to be able to meet the needs of the increasing tourists. The next stage is the consolidation stage. Right, at the consolidation stage, the growth in the number of visitors now ceases. Right, there is no growth. The destination loses its distinctiveness. There's nothing so special, when people have visited and so on. So managers now focus on controlling the costs, all right, and gaining revenue from the groups. Some environmental and cultural problems may begin to come in at this particular stage, at this consolidation stage. The growth will cease. There is ceasing growth. There is no increase in the growth, and then the destination will now lose its distinctiveness. All right. So, and some problem will start to maybe come in, some cultural as well as some environmental problems. Don't forget that we've discussed about these problems in the previous class. So after the consolidation stage, the last stage in the developmental stage of the tourism is the stagnation stage, all right, the stagnation or decline stage. At this stage, the area has reached the full capacity. The area would have reached the full staff capacity. The business will try to maintain tourist members, maybe the management of the area or the destination will try to maintain tourist members, and then all of the environmental and social problems of tourism will now appear at this stage, right? At the consolidation stage, they may want to begin to crop in, right? Some cultural environmental problems. But at the stagnation stage, this is where you have it all present. You have all the impact of the problems on the environment, as well as the environmental, as well as the social problems continue to arise at this stage. So these are just basically the stages of tourism development. You have the exploration, the involvement, the development, right? The fourth stage is the consolidation, and the last is the stagnation stage. Moving ahead now, we want to talk about the, one of the triple bottom line of sustainability or sustainable tourism. Like I mentioned earlier, sustainable tourism actually focuses on triple bottom line, and this is by incorporating the three P's. One is the planet. We have the profit, that's the economic impact of tourism, and the last one is the people. So when we talk about sustainability, you have to take into consideration these three. What is the impact? Okay, the economic impact in terms of profit, then the environmental impact, that's the planet, as well as the people, that's the impact on the local residents. So for now, we want to talk about the planet. As human beings, we all know what planet is, or what the planets that we have, and we know that climate change is something that is a global phenomenon, a global phenomenon. Tourism activities are based on seasonal climate. There are times that certain destinations are more seasonal than others. We visit certain destinations in certain periods, in certain seasons than some others. So tourism is likely to be influenced by this climate change, and it also contributes to human activity that is causing this climate change. There are times that the activities of human beings, or we all know how our daily activities affect the climate. So some of these destinations, some of these tourism destinations are, they are affected by these climate changes, So as a result, many tourism activities are also based on the seasons. There are times that they would experience a low patronage because of the season, and there are times that the tourism business will actually experience high patronage because of the seasons. There are times that people visit certain places because of the season. Say, for example, winter. During winter, you may want to visit some countries so as just to have an experience. The next is the people. The next is the people. Short-term economic gains but long-lived damage. That is one of the effects of tourism, high rate of tourism or attractions. Right? There may be short-term economic gain. You make profits from people's visit. You make revenue. You generate revenue from maybe their taxes, their purchases, and so on. But there are times that the damage may be long-lived. Developers will abandon the area when the growth ceases. We've talked about the seizure of development at a certain stage. So when developers realize that when developers realize that certain destinations have continued to experience constant or a seizure in growth, when there are no increase in the growth of people, when there is no longer influx of people to such areas, the developers would prefer to abandon such areas and they move to new destinations. They prefer to move to new destinations to start building or constructing infrastructures there to serve the needs of tourists over there. So that is another impact. The quality of life for local residents is also going to change because, one, the patronage might be low. Those that have businesses around those tourist areas will have or will experience low patronage. Then the host-guest relationship will also likely be affected when tourism continues. When the local residents, for example, feel they are having their businesses are impacted, or some of their cultural or maybe their social or cultural their culture is being affected, so to speak. So there is tendency that they may want to, resist, or they may want to be hostile to the tourists. So all these are impact of high growth of high growth of tourists, right? High growth or influx of tourists to certain areas or destinations. Still on this people, we have the Iridex, which was developed as developed by tourism researcher named George Doxey. This Iridex talks about the level of irritation locals may feel with the influx of tourists. When tourists are so many, or when there is high influx of tourists in a particular area, what are the things that they feel? So a researcher named George Doxey actually carried out this research, and he came up with this index known as the Iridex. The first stage is the stage where there is euphoria over economic boom. They are excited over the boom of the economy because, of course, the influx of people will open doors for so many opportunities. Like I mentioned earlier, they may want to open businesses to attend or to serve the needs of those tourists. The second stage is the apathy stage. That is when when the locals now take tourism for granted. That's the apathy stage. When taking tourism for granted, that's the second stage of by which locals feel. The first is the stage where they are excited. The second is the stage where they just feel apathy, right? And they take the tourism for granted. The third is the third stage is where they have annoyance, as the residents now become saturated with this. The tourists. They would have already have it to maybe the maximum that they can bear. Right? They would have already had it to their fullest, like they can no longer cope. So that is where they begin to become annoyed. They grow some level of annoyance, and they start to see the downside of tourists, or the presence of tourists in the place. And the last stage is the stage where they now antagonize. All right, this is the stage where the locals now treat the tourists poorly because they are seen as root of their problem. They've now realized that, okay, the influx of tourists to this area has actually caused us this. All right, for example, maybe it has cost some people their farmland. Their farmland has been maybe taken by the government to construct something, whatever you can think of. Maybe accommodation facilities, for example, or a road has been constructed that has actually forced the government to take over the land that was meant for farming. That's just an example, right? So that is meant for farming by the locals. So this will now bring about anger on the part of the locals, because they know that it's because of these tourists that the government has taken that particular action or step. So what they do at this last stage is to antagonize. Okay, they antagonize, and at times might even lead to maybe some physical attack or something on the tourists, just because these locals now they have realized, or they have seen that the tourists are the root of their problems. So far, we've discussed the problems that can arise as a result of an influx of people, or that can arise from tourism, ranging from the social, cultural, as well as environmental impacts. So, having mentioned all this, what can be done? The question is, what can be done to minimize all these problems? Okay, in areas where tourism activities are still developing, many efforts can be taken so as to safeguard the environment. So, one of such is the sustainable tourism, like we mentioned before. One of such is the sustainable tourism, and this is actually meant to maximize the positive impact. Don't forget that impact can be positive or negative, but the aim of sustainability or sustainable tourism is to increase the or maximize the positive impact, all right, and minimize the negative impact. We want to minimize the negative impact on the three P's that I've mentioned earlier. That's on planet, on people, as well as profit. So profitability of sustainability is just one of these ways. You try to engage in sustainable tourism, such that you increase the impact and your own profitability, as well as minimize the negative impact. There is no universal set of standard for use of sustainability, as it were, especially in tourism. Then there is need for awareness, education, and actions. All right, all these need to be taken into consideration so as to ensure sustainable tourism. These are the degrees of sustainability. Mass tourism contains different degrees, or constitute different degrees. The first is the nature tourism, ecological tourism, alternative tourism, responsible tourism, green tourism, and lastly, sustainable tourism. All these are words that we must have come across at one stage or the other. We all know what nature is. Eco, we all know, for something to be friendly and the likes. Alternative tourism, an alternative to something is like providing something that is better than the existing one. Then responsible, we want to talk about responsible tourism, just being responsible in the field of tourism. Then green tourism, we've been hearing about green, also more related to you know, making something being friendly, right? As well as the sustainable tourism. So all these are the degree of sustainability. Sustainability has been experienced, or has been explained in different fold, or can be presented, or has been presented in different degrees, like we have nature, eco, alternative, responsible. So all these terminologies are still part of the sustainable or sustainable tourism. Ecotourism, that is the next, and like I mentioned earlier, so many words have been coined. We mentioned eco in the previous slide now, eco-friendly, so to say. So it's a form of philosophy of tourism that emphasizes the need to develop tourism that minimizes environmental impact and maximizes economic and cultural benefits. So that's just the basic logic behind sustainability. You want to improve the positive impact and you want to excuse me, reduce the negative impact. Eco-travelers generally desire to mingle with local people and they have needs filled by locals in the culture's traditional ways. Those that are eco-travelers, that are economically friendly or eco-travelers, they desire to mingle with the local. You want to mingle with the local people, and they have their needs filled by the local in their own cultural, their culture's traditional way. Moving ahead, we're going to discuss the 5 basic principles of ecotourism development. The first is that tourism should blend with environment and local culture. Tourism, any tourism that is targeting or that is aiming being eco-friendly should try at least to blend with the environment and the local culture of the people. There is no area or there is no tourist central attraction where there won't be people that are locals that are residing there before people discover the place and decide to make it a tourist attraction area. So the aim of an ecotourism should be such that the culture of those people as well as their environment should be preserved. All right. Tourist experience should focus on host communities' existing scenic and activity opportunities. For you, for an ecotourism, the tourism activities should also focus or should focus on the host community, that's the locals that are residing in that particular tourist area. So you focus on their own scenic and activity opportunities. Like I mentioned earlier, don't cut the nose to spite the face. Like you don't you don't take their farmlands and for the purpose of construct, because you want to construct motorable road or maybe accessible road through any means to the tourist attraction. You now maybe the government now sees the farmland just to please the tourists at the expense of the locals. So an ecotourism should also should really focus on the activity opportunities of the locals as well. Locals should own and manage all or most services. All right, that is one of the principles for any tourism to be referred as eco tourism. Then the locals should be allowed to manage at least if not all, most of the services in terms of provision of any services, accommodation services, maybe shopping activities, transportation, so many things that we've mentioned earlier in terms of in the previous classes, even provision of food and beverages like we mentioned, running restaurant and so on, even spas, gym, or all sorts. So the locals should be allowed to provide all these services so as to improve their own economy too. Then an ecotourism should have a high proportion of local materials. All right, the materials should be produced or provided locally so as to fulfill the tourist need. You don't need to import. All right, you don't need to import the items that the tourists need. They should at least be provided locally. Eco techniques should also be used to conserve resources. So all these are the principles, the basic 5 principles of ecotourism. It should be environmental friendly. You should preserve the culture of the people, their experience, the experience of the host community as well as their activities should not be affected. They should own and manage, the locals should own and manage services. Then a high proportion of the materials should be used in fulfilling the tourist needs. Ecotourism encompasses three core elements. Okay, there are three core elements. One is nature-based attractions. Two is emphasis on learning, and the third is the high desire for sustainability of natural attractions and native people. We have different types of tourist attraction, like we mentioned in one of the previous classes. So, but for any tourist to be referred to, any tourist attraction to be eco-friendly or referred to as ecotourism, there should be just three core elements. It should be nature-based. It will be a nature-based attraction. It should be the emphasis should be on learning. The emphasis should be on learning, and then there should be high desire for sustainability of such natural attractions and that of the native people. You don't an eco-tourism or any an ecotourism destination shouldn't be aimed at maybe extincting the people, or maybe you want to expel them from that local area. So that is not part of the aim. It's not part of the core element. Any tourism, all of these three attractions that we've mentioned should be present in any eco tourism, or for any attractions to be referred to as being an eco tourism. Ecotourism encompasses spectrum of activities which could be hard or soft. The hard are referred to as rugged and uncomfortable. They may be rugged and they may be uncomfortable. They are enjoyed by a relatively small proportion of environmentally conscious ecotourists. The second is the soft. These are short duration side trips on mass tourism travel by mass ecotourists, right? The trips are often incorporated into longer or multi-destination or multi-purpose trips. So eco-tourism could also, we've talked about the principles, we've talked about the elements, and now this is just the spectrum of the activities. It could be hard, whereby it is rugged and uncomfortable, and this may be enjoyed by a small proportion of those people that are actually environmentally conscious, right? Environmentally conscious ecotourists. Then the other one is the soft, which is the short duration side trips. These are common terms that are used to describe ecotourism and the related activities. It could be an adventure tourism or green tourism. For adventure tourism, you'll be hearing terminologies such as low impact tourism, and for green tourism, it will refer to as nature-based tourism. We have rural tourism as well as wilderness tourism. For green tourism, you have terms such as nature-based tourism, sustainable tourism, responsible tourism. So all these are the terminologies. There are times that all these terminologies are all referring to the same thing, all right? The common terms. For example, when you see nature-based tourism, then you should know that they're talking about green tourism. When you see sustainable tourism, it also means green tourism as well as responsible tourism. Adventure tourism could be referred to as maybe low impact, rural tourism, as well as wilderness tourism. So these are some of the terms that are used interchangeably to mean adventure tourism or green tourism. Niche markets. We all know what niche is, just like carving a special area, an activity. So even in tourism, there are some areas that are niche that have been carved, out of the larger family name of tourism. One is the geotourism. This focuses on the unique culture and heritage of a location while attempting to help visitors enrich these qualities. So that is the definition or the explanation of what geotourism is. So it focuses on the unique culture, like like geographical. So it focuses on the unique culture and heritage of a particular location, and then while attempting to help the visitors enrich these qualities. We also have the term voluntourism, from voluntary or volunteer, right? This is a trip that combines travel activities with charitable work. Tourists embark on travel activities, and they also have the aim of doing charitable work there. While they are staying in that particular tourist area, they will do some charitable work there, but the main purpose of the tourism is to combine their travel activities with that particular charitable work. Then the last one is the farm to fork concept. Farm to fork, just the basic idea of from the farm to maybe the table, so to say, or like already processed products that can be eaten if it's food and so on. So the goal is to create a complete cycle of sustainability. For example, when farmers team up with local restaurants to showcase maybe their locally produced agricultural products, especially the organic one. All right, so this is the another concept, another niche market in tourism. You have the geotourism, volunteerism, which relates to voluntary activities, as well as to the farm to fork concept. So this is a kind of providing platform for farmers to showcase their agricultural products. They are going to liaise with the tourist attraction managers or the management to maybe, for example, local restaurant owners. The farmers are going to liaise with them to let them use their locations for showcasing their agricultural products, their organic products to tourists, such that they can also be patronized. So these are some of the niche, these are some of the unique or special areas of tourism. Take note of it, the tourism, volunteerism, as well as the farm to fork concepts. Establishing standards. Environmental certification programs lack standardization. That is a common problem globally. All right, when we talk about standardization, you want to bring something, to standardize something to make it, to give it a particular stance, such that this is what we'll obtain whenever or wherever. But when this is lacking, then it becomes a problem or an issue. So environmental certification programs, they lack global standardization. What obtains in country A or destination A will be different from what obtains in destination B. So there's a wide range of associations that are providing certification and governmental agencies, right? We have so many, and the problem is that there is no universal standard usage. There is always a guideline in this particular area, in this particular area you want to talk about, or sector you want to say, okay, this is what obtains, this is how you go about it. You must do this, it must fulfill this particular it must fulfill this particular condition, and so on and so forth. But going to some other places also, you find out that something else obtains there. So that there is a lack of global standardization, especially within tourism, because the local laws or rules guiding some locations are different from some other places. So you have so many standards or whatever that you may come across as a learner or as a tourist student or as a tourism student. But there are, so many of these will have different standards. There are different standards such that it becomes an issue to find a kind of globally acceptable standard, so to say, for each of these operators. So there is the abuse of the term eco in greenwashers. Because of this, there is abuse of the term eco. That is That is to say that people now use the word even when they don't even mean it, when they are not meeting up with the conditions, with the principles. We mentioned the principles the other time. So even when they don't meet up with those, they still use the term echo, right? They misuse or they abuse the term. And there is this concept of which greenwashers, which is a new term that is coined to mean or to refer to tour operators who make dubious ecological claims. They claim to be what they are not. So this is another problem as a result of lack of standardization globally, lack of global standardization of all this. So you'll be hearing so many names or so many standards that are meant for different maybe aspects of tourism. For example, maybe sustainable travel international. You'll be hearing Green Hotel Association. You'll be hearing maybe a Rainforest Alliance. All these different they have different standards, conservative international and so on and so forth. They have different standards, but the standardization is so lacking, and it's as a result of this that so many issues are coming up, and it has led to the abuse of the word eco. So people just claim to be eco-friendly when they provide, when they produce product, they will tell you it is eco this and that, it is eco and so on. Meanwhile, they are not even fulfilling the conditions for using the term. So these are the 7 sins of greenwashing, like I mentioned earlier, when a business will mislead a customer. You greenwash when you are misleading your customers. You are telling them what you are not, all right? The first is the sin of hidden trade-off. The sin of hidden trade-off. That is when you have a claim that a product is green. You are claiming that your product is eco-friendly. It is green based on a narrow set of attributes, very narrow features, all right, without paying attention to the other environmental issues. You're just saying the product is eco-friendly, it's this and that. You're not paying attention to the other impact that it's having, especially on the environment. The second is the sin of no proof. Is when there is an environmental claim that can be substantiated, excuse me, by accessible supporting information. You are just laying that claim, right, without providing detailed information as to how it can be verified, as to how the information can be verified. So the information will not be accessible for people to know whether you're actually saying the truth or not. Then there is the sin of vagueness. The sin of vagueness. This is where a claim that a claim that is poorly defined. You are claiming something, but you are not giving the details. A claim that is poorly defined. The sin of worshiping false labels. You worship false labels. That is when you have when a product that has used either words or images to give the impression that there is a third-party endorsement. You are using images or words or text of other maybe companies just to give people the impression that just to give the people impression that you are in partnership with such maybe company, for example. So you are given, you are presenting the words or images of those third party. It could be company, it could be any other thing, to give people the impression that you have their endorsement. Meanwhile, such endorsement is not real. The endorsement does not exist. Next is the sin of irrelevance. The sin of irrelevance is a situation where you have an environmental claim that may be truthful. The claim may actually be truth, but it is unimportant or even unhelpful to consumers seeking environmentally preferable products. You are laying claim on something, but that particular thing is not even relevant for consumers. It's not useful for them. It's not helpful for them. You just claim. So the information is just irrelevant, so to say. The next one is the sin of lesser of two evil. Okay, sin of lesser of two evil. This is a claim that may be true within the product category, within that very particular category, product category. The information may be true, but it risks distracting consumers from the environmental impact. That information is just, will just, I mean, it's just going to divert people. It's just going to distract their attention from the environmental impact of the product. The last one is the sin of fibbing. This relates to environmental claims that are simply false. It actually means the claims are simply false. So these are, false. They are not true. They are not true. So these are the 7 sins of greenwashing when a business will mislead a customer. Goals of ecotourism standards. We've talked about the need for ecotourism standard and the fact that the standardization is not even, globally achieved. It has not been globally achieved as people do operate different standards of different categories of people or tourism providers have different standard. So these are the goals of ecotourism standards generally. The first is to provide clear definitions. All right, you provide clear definitions of, who, what, where, why, how of this of the standard. The second is to establish measurable criteria. The criteria that would, that will be used in setting those standards. You measure them. They must be something that can be measurable. How do you know that, okay, this thing is up to standard? There should be certain rubrics that will be used to tick, okay, that okay, it meets this it meets this criteria, it meets this criteria. So there should be certain things that will be listed as rubrics to measure such standards. Then it should measure and report compliance. There should be compliance, and it should be measurable. Then it will also promote consistency in use of terminology. Excuse me. There should be consistency in the use of terminologies. Don't use sustainable in one place and another place you use green, another place you use standard should be consistent in its use of terminology. And the last of economic and ecotourism standard is to define or to create defined marketing program. The marketing program should be well defined and stated. So these are sustainable versus conventional lodging operations in terms of the host community. For example, sustainable lodging operators or operations will include or will involve maintaining cultural and social diversity while educating and engaging the community. For the conventional, they collect and pay taxes. So all these are just the differences between the sustainable and the conventional lodging operations in terms of the host community, the project location and design, the transportation, the staff, the food, the energy, water, waste management, and marketing. For example, in terms of waste management, sustainable lodging operations will focus on reducing, recycling, as well as disposing waste so as not to harm the environment. All right. For the conventional, what they do is just to utilize the available commercial or community waste management facilities. You just want to use those available whatever without considering maybe the the impact, the economic impact of such. Next is going green. Going green is just basically all aspects of environmentally friendly products, right? Providing or producing environmentally friendly products. The transfer of ecotourism philosophy to the preservation of many practices that support mass tourism markets. Going green includes 4 R's that most of us must have been familiar with. That's reuse, recycle, reduce, and buying recycled products. So when you're going, going green, it's you inculcate the 4 R's, or it involves 4 R's, so to speak. You reuse, you recycle the products, you reuse products that have been used before. You can still wash it, clean it, and reuse, rather than just using one-off products such as disposable products. So you buy reusable products so that you can conserve, and then you recycle, reduce the use of certain products, and then you buy also recycled products. Eco techniques are being used by tourism suppliers that are going green, or that claim to go green. And there's also use of formal planning processes for future development and operations. So basically, products or companies that lay claim to going green are just trying to provide economic and friendly products that are that are meant to be friendly to make the environment friendly. Gains from sustainable practices. What are the gains when we embark on sustainable practices? The first is that there is more income for more locals. When tourism, particularly as we're concerned with tourism here, when tourism activities involve green products or economic and friendly products, then there will be more income for the locals. Then there is promotion of understanding between the locals and visitors. Education of locals on health, education, business, and conservation issues are also part of the sustainable practices, part of the gains from embarking on sustainable practices. And lastly, there is the provision of financial incentive to protect the natural as well as the cultural resources. These are the barriers that discourage customers from participating in green practices. At times, it could be inconvenient. Take, for example, reusing products. There are certain products that some people may just be irritated to reuse. It may be inconvenience for them. Then this perception of cost cutting also. People believe that when you are trying to go green, you are being some kind of being economical. You are trying to cost. Then there is also concern about decreased luxury, especially to those that are consumers that are used to luxurious life. They just feel you want to, they feel concerned that you want to kind of decrease their own luxury lifestyle. Consumers are more likely to behave with a higher level of environmental responsibility at home than in hotel. It occurs at times. You just have this kind of feeling that after all I've paid, after all I've paid, so I can eat what I like. Maybe the hotel provide a buffet. Okay, you want to eat like 5 different meals or so. Maybe even in the room, you at home, you might want to preserve or conserve your use of electricity. You want to know when to switch on. You're conscious of when to switch it on and when to switch it off. Probably in the daytime you want to switch it off so as to save or conserve energy consumption. But then in the hotel, you're careless. You switch on the AC, switch on the lights. You use electrical appliances as you like, and so on. So there is this likelihood that people behave less concerned or less responsibly, pardon me for the use of that word, when they are in a hotel compared to when they are at home. A part of going green is also to manage the physical and social capacities, all right? And this can be done either by policies of dispersion, all right, dispersing people, and maybe through restrictive entry when tourists are restricted from certain areas. For example, this can be achieved by reservations. You have to make reservations before you can visit certain tourist attractions. Once the maximum capacity is achieved, then you will not be able to make reservation. Some of us may have experienced such situations. There are times that they can even restrict entry by sales of tickets. Okay, some people, once they hear that, okay, before you gain entrance into or entry into this particular area, you have to pay, apart from the payment of, the entrance fee that you must have paid before, accessing the main tourist attraction. Within the tourist area also, you have certain areas that may have been, earmarked or dedicated that, okay, you still have to pay an extra cost before you visit or enter this particular area. So these are forms or ways in which entry can be restricted. And there are times that they want to also embark on a lottery system. You go on a lottery, you try if you'll be able to pick, or access, if you'll be able to gain access by picking maybe the lottery that would enable you access the place or not. Or there are times that entry can be restricted by charging higher fees, and there are times that higher fees are being charged at maybe certain areas or certain hours during certain period, just to control or to restrict entry into such places. One way for any tourism or hospitality organization that has a building to prove that they are dedicated to sustainable practices is to obtain the LEED form. Okay, they obtain the LEED certification from the non-US Green Building Council, non-profit Green Building Council. We are still talking about going green, being eco-friendly, providing economic and friendly products. So we're now saying one way for tourism hospitality organization that has this that has a building to prove that they have this they have dedicated their own building to being sustainable, or they have practiced they've been back upon sustainable practices, is to get this LEED certification. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. All right, this certification is given to buildings in the US. So, for example, if you have customers or tourists that are conscious about eco tourism or something like that, obtaining this kind of certification can be a kind of a marketing strategy, just to convince them that okay, yes, we are also embarking upon green, or we are also going green, or we are also embarking upon a sustainable development. For this LEED certification, there are 4 levels. You can just be certified. You can just be certified, or you are a silver. These are forms of their membership: silver, gold, as well as gold, as well as the platinum. Other certification programs include the Green Seal for hotels, Energy Star, the Green Food and Service Alliance. At times when you walk into certain hotels, all right, because we are talking about tourism here, and hotel or accommodation is one of the services that they provide. So at times you go to some of these hotels and you find all this certification that being displayed. So now you know the implication of those certification when you find them there. Okay, when they lay claim to the fact that okay, we are being certified by the Green Seal for hotel, or we have the Energy Star certification, and so on. So once people see that, then they appreciate it more. For those who know the implications, so they appreciate the the hotels or the management more. What is the future of sustainability? We've been talking about sustainability from the beginning of the class, almost an hour. We've talked about going green, eco-friendly, and so on and so forth. The 3 bottom line: the people, the planet, all right? So all these are part of sustainability, as well as the profit, all right? The PPP, people, planet, and profit. So to develop mass tourism according to triple bottom line of sustainability, which I just mentioned, that's the people, profit, as well as the planet. So, and allow for ecotourism and other forms of alternative tourism as a supplement. Then we have the lifestyle entrepreneurship, which is another area that has been coined, another area that people now embark upon. right? Any individual who creates a business with the main goal or intention of improving the life, right, in some way, improving people's life. For example, someone who travels, maybe around the world, and they now post articles, maybe on their blog. They post pictures or videos on their blog throughout the journey. So this is a kind of lifestyle entrepreneurship. They are telling people, they are into the business of lifestyle. They're into the business of creating business. They're into the business of creating awareness or improving people's life or lifestyle. Their lifestyle is being impacted by the tourism activities. Then minimizing the negative impact and maximizing the ability of future generations to see the world. That is another feature of sustainability. This sustainability aims to actually minimize as much as possible the negative impact. We all know that we've explained the positive as well as the negative impact of tourism. So you want to minimize the negative impact as much as possible, and then you maximize the positive impact as much as possible, so that the future generation will also see to this. They will also appreciate nature the more. So thank you very much for your audience. It's been a long day of the way. Kindly refer to your PowerPoint slide as well as this video or audio, as the case may be. Thank you so much for your audience once again. Hope to see you in the next class. Okay, bye. Thank you very much.